The latest issue of Zine Monochrome is complete. It is done. This one's titled Art from the Ordinary on the Daily Walk. It was made on this very location, on this pathway, this 8/10 of a mile pathway near my house over the course of a year. So today I thought we'd talk a little bit about some of the specifics, some of the logistics, a little bit about this project, and this will be the last time you hear me talk about it. Well, in depth anyway. Today I'm not carrying a camera, just got my little video camera. Nori and I are on more of a fitness walk. Light conditions aren't very good, as usual for this time of year. And we're looking to be in the mid-90s for the next few days, so probably won't be doing any photography. Thought it'd be a good time to wrap up this project, talk a little bit about it, kind of reflect a little bit on it, and start thinking about the future. In the intro to this zine, I state what started out as an exercise in composition turned into this zine project. And that's basically what happened. I just wanted to start taking a camera with me, more of my daily life. And I thought, well, maybe I should just do it on my walks. It's really when I get out the most anyway. So when my dog Nori and I headed out on this specific pathway that we walk pretty much every day, I started taking a camera along. And on that first outing, first couple outings, I was surprised that the art I was starting to see on subjects that I walked past every day and really never gave it much thought. Stuff I see all the time. But as I started looking closer, I started seeing interesting compositions. I started looking at the surroundings a little differently. And I have to say that this project has helped me grow as a photographer a lot over this last year, more than I would have ever thought at this time in my life. It's very interesting that you can be a photographer for so long, and once you start working a little differently or looking a little harder or a little closer, you can still grow. I find that extremely exciting. I would say this is probably one of the harder projects I've ever worked on, just because it's not obvious. These photos, I feel like I have to work harder to make something that looks artistic to me. I mean, just looking around, I wouldn't think, there's nothing here. And I never really expected to make this a project. It was just a good exercise in looking for compositions. I took my video camera along, so all the photos in the scene, pretty much all of them, I believe there was some kind of video attached to them. I guess that gives that artwork a little more credibility. We definitely know it's not AI generated, right? No tripod was used in the making of this zine. It was all handheld photography, because this was the walk, the daily walk. I wasn't going to carry around a bunch of stuff. So all the images were made handheld, which limited me to shutter speeds that had to be fast enough that I could handhold the camera, which meant I had to use a higher ISO than I would typically use. I would say a bulk of the images, pretty much all of them, were made with ISO 1600 to 3200. Even on a bright sunny day, it is really dark in the shadows. And to get the shutter speed I needed to get a sharp enough image, I had to use the higher ISOs. Occasionally I could get down to around ISO 400. I'm a black and white only photographer, and I think that allows me to use a higher ISO without getting too much image quality loss. This project really drove home how good ISO 3200 could look even with my older cameras. That texture, that grain-like pattern really almost becomes invisible on these size prints in magazines and books. You really have to look hard to see it. One of the first images I made on this zine is the first image in the zine. It's one of my favorite. I think it's one of the images that got me looking at this pathway a little different. How I could take ordinary fern and see something in it that almost had a story. This first image of fern was in the spring of 2022. It reminded me of like a child with a bunch of adults. This little fern in front of these towering ferns had kind of a family feel to it to me. That image really set the tone for me on what was possible, what I could be looking for and finding in this pathway. I was seeing the spring foliage in a whole different way. In black and white, I would have never thought, well, the lighter greens look a lot different in black and white than the older growth. They almost had a glow to them. And that's stuff that I really didn't think that much about. I've been shooting black and white for a long time, but I really wasn't looking close enough to see those subtle things that really make an image pop. Now I'm seeing the tones much better than I was before this project. Now I didn't take a lot of photos on all these walks. I often would just get one or two. And sometimes I'd get I'd go crazy and get 5 or 6. But the goal wasn't to go out and make a bunch of images. We were on our daily walk. It was to respond to something that caught my attention. And so I would just look as I walked. And as I said, sometimes I would get one, and sometimes I would get many. But even with just one photo, it was never a failure. And even if I wouldn't have taken any photos, it wouldn't have been a failure. Because really, the purpose for being out here was for me and my little sidekick Nori to get some exercise. This is one of her favorite things of the day, is to go for a walk. She gets so excited when I grab the leash. This is her time out, her time to explore, even if it's the same stretch of pathway. These trees behind me is a great example of how different this place looks in different seasons. It's really dark in here. There's hardly any light. But during the winter, the light was coming through and really making the form of these trees show. Definitely a photo in the zine. Not a photo right now. And I walked past this over and over again. And then one day, the light hit it just right, and I was here at the right time of day, and I went, oh, there's a photo. And that was kind of an eye-opening experience. Even a 24-hour period, I could see something completely different on this trail. I think I've got something in all the seasons that represents the seasons pretty well. I came across this piece of ice in the trail. and it made such an interesting abstract. I talked about that in the video when I made that image. I dwelled on it a little bit more because I found it so interesting. And I made that one big in the zine because it's the little details in this image and the flow that really make it for me. It's bubbles upon bubbles, little dinky micro bubbles, and the bigger bubbles. It really worked as a interesting abstract for me. Now, the images in the zine might not be for everybody. It is how I see the world. It's how I see nature. It's my voice. And I wouldn't expect really anybody else to make photos like I make photos. Everybody has their own voice, and that's what you should be striving for. I have learned so much about myself as a photographer working on this project. It's almost profound. It's such a simple project. It's such a simple idea. And I feel like it really honed my visual skills. I feel like I could go just about anywhere and find something to photograph. Well, hopefully this hasn't been too boring for you. I know quite a few people have seen me working on this zine. This zine project has been in a lot of videos on my Writing Edge Photography channel and my Sing Monochrome channel. So you knew this was coming. Now it's done, and now it's time to move on to something else. I'll put a link in the description if you'd like to preview this zine. It doesn't cost anything. Take a look. I love it when people get a chance to see my photography, see my work. That's really what it's about. No pressure. You don't have to buy it. You can just look at it. But if you want to help this channel, help me out, help support my art, then certainly you can pick up a copy for yourself if you'd like. If you like coming along on my photography journey and would like to help keep me out making photos and videos, consider picking up one of my zines or visit my PayPal donation page at my website, ridingedgephotography.com. Most of all, don't forget to like and subscribe. And why not leave a comment introducing yourself? I'm always interested in who stopped by my channel to say hello. So until next time, thanks for coming along for the ride.